So good afternoon, everyone. Greetings of the day. Welcome to FINSEC Conclave 2023. Today we are all here for the session Cloud and Compliance, Devising Strategies Amidst Complexities and Nuisances. We have our esteemed panelists with us for this session who will be sharing their insightful thoughts on the same. I would like to welcome them. First, we welcome Mr. Mithilesh Singh, Senior Director and Global Head, Technology Audit, Cyber Analytics at S&P Global. So please. I would like to welcome Mr. Darshan Chavan, Chief Information Security Officer at Canada Rebeco Asset Management Company Limited. We have our esteemed moderator, Mrs. Lakshmi, Principal Architect at Brilo. I would like to give it over to you, Lakshmi ma'am.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving us this opportunity for this discussion and welcome to this session. And I would like to thank our esteemed panelists as well, Mithilesh sir and Darshan sir, for this discussion. So today our topic of discussion, as you know, is cloud and compliance and devising strategies for comprehending the complexities and nuances. So we all know cloud has been one of the key technology enabler for banking sector, and banking sector has been the pioneer in adopting more and more emerging technologies so that they are able to provide a lot of different customer experiences, and customer expectations always keeps going north, right? So every expectation keeps driving newer innovations, newer time to market speed, and all that is being enabled by newer technologies like cloud, and cloud being the enabler for many other technologies like AI or blockchain or IoT or even metaverse, right? And not to mention, we are already talking about 6G. So all technologies, whatever we are seeing as emerging, are being adopted through this Indian sector, banking sector. They all started from why cloud, and now we have been in a stage where we are saying why not cloud, right? So we have seen a drastic change in the way it has been adopted in financial sectors, though there are a lot of regulations, lot of standards, data regulations that apply, but now we have learned to navigate this journey, be it by adopting the well-architected framework where we are seeing how we have to leverage the operational efficiency or the reliability or the security and the cost optimization, and not to mention the sustainability targets as well, right? So cloud has been a key enabler for various different aspects. Apart from bringing the scale, bringing the innovation angle, and bringing the flexibility, it is also helping us to achieve the sustainability targets. So given that cloud has been the platform of choice, and there are multiple different clouds as well, right? It's not just public cloud. Earlier, there was a lot of on-premise applications. Now they are moving on to public cloud, private cloud, or still the hybrid cloud, depending upon the different types of applications what we are seeing. So this has been a journey for both the financial industries, banking sectors, insurance sectors, and moving on to cloud has been a change in their mindset, change in their business model, and change in their governance structure as well, right? So let us hear from our esteemed panelist, Mithilesh sir, how they have been adopting this strategy into their business and how they have seen the good adoption that has happened, best practices, and some of the challenges they have been mitigating in this journey.
Thank you, ma'am. So I think some changes have happened now. I have transitioned to LIC now. So I have joined them as a CISO. So this was my earlier organization. So just to be clear on that. I hope I'm audible to all of you, right? Yeah. So it's a very well thought that how about the adoption of cloud and how has been the journey so far. So I'll take you back to 80s when application was like pretty much in the silos 80s or 90s, and gradually the time came in 20s where we have seen that application service provider has become a very quite phenomenon as a norms, and gradually then came the cloud journey. So eventually today it is it's not that something, whether it's your choice or not, it has become a mandate kind of thing that whether you are in the regulated environment or non-regulated environment, it has become from all aspects is one of the important area where organization is marching towards it. Okay. Now, what actually you are trying to expect or appreciate from the overall deployment or getting into the cloud journey? So that is what is more important. It is not only the regulatory requirement, it is not only the security aspect, but more so that how business is going to leverage after the adoption of the cloud. So that is more important. How you are helping the organization or the business to scale your environment. So that's the another area. And in terms of that, performance optimization is one of the very important areas which you also need to be mindful, because when you are migrating from on-prem setup to the cloud setup, so there are various ways and means. So you can have a lift and shift, wherein in the lift and shift kind of position, wherein you are just removing your underlying infrastructure and you are just shifting your entire platform or the application from the on-prem to the cloud setup. Then the other way of doing the same application development is, which is a very much cloud native app development, right? Where you are making your application in a way where it has to be very much in line with the cloud principle. So when I say cloud principles in terms of the scalability part, so many of the organization, when they are moving from the monolithic to the microservice kind of architecture concept, but again, that is again a debatable, but those are also one of the areas which people look into it, that before they migrate into that kind of setup, whether you need to also cater into the requirement, whether your customer base, your customers who are going to use the application or the existing customer, future prospect customer, how you are going to plan for them. So scalability is one of the very, very important area, what you have to look into it. Reliability is definitely one of the very important thing, because CSPs definitely they have a lot of what I call they have various kind of backup options available, and whether you in the morning we have also heard a lot from various speakers and various sessions about what are the various kind of challenges and the kind of regulatory, and those are part we will take it later. But various kind of arrangement which is there through the cloud service providers, and how governments are playing the role. So there are many aspects to it which we can discuss in details, and I think this panel time will be very limited when we start getting into each and every areas. But largely, it has to be in line with the business expectation, business alignments, and their objectives and goals. And you also need to see that how reliable is your going to be the solution, and how quickly you can scale it, and security and this kind of regulatory ask is by default expectation, what I can say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mithilesh sir, for sharing your views. Certainly, when we adopt cloud, primarily the more better or the more design aspects is what is going to play a key role. And over and above that, the compliance, also making it compliance proofing by making sure the workloads are distinct, the granular the workloads are done. It is better to move each other individually or provide that access controls separately, and also tagging, not just for billing purposes, right? Tagging also for compliance proofing, so easily identifying these resources, and also making sure we are able to tag these resources rightly for the auditing purposes. All these are additional advantage what we can leverage on the cloud, be it lift and shift, or be it re-architecting to the cloud, or making it a cloud native application completely. So what has been your journey, sir, in cloud adoption, and what are some of the best practices you have been adopting?
Okay, hello Mithilesh ji, Lakshmi ma'am, first of all. Like you said, the cloud adoption has been a topic of discussion. A lot of boards, a lot of conferences, and multiple levels of discussions have happened throughout the industry. The major point of discussions or major selling points in any board meeting related to cloud is the ROI, okay, the return of investment. So basically, cloud will provide you that. It will provide you flexibility. You will provide the way you have to present it in the board. Okay, it's the way it's a step-by-step approach. I believe in that. I have been to about 3-4 companies where I've seen cloud adoption and cloud migration going ahead with. And in entire journey, wherever it comes to people and the process. Okay, cloud has been very beneficial to the industry. I understand there are risks, but every single journey, wherever you have your data, it's always impounded with risks. And cloud as a technology has been there in the current evolving business for a very long time now. It's been roughly around 10, 15 years when people like AWS and Microsoft has even started working on the entire cloud framework, and people have adopted it. I know my friends internationally who have adopted it right in 2014, 2013. They have been on cloud and they have gone back from cloud as well. Okay, so it's a journey that you need to understand properly. For that, you need to understand your business. You need to understand which approach is better. Okay, there are multiple levels in this. You have to consider which is the best approach, and then only go ahead with it. The business need is very important in the entire journey. So whether you should have a private cloud, whether you should have a hybrid cloud, whether you should have a complete cloud migration is a point of discussion when you understand the business need. Okay. In the entire financial industry, wherever I've seen, majority of players, maximum players I've seen on hybrid cloud. Okay, nobody has been full-fledged on cloud. That's in my experience, but but it is differing now. People have started moving completely on cloud. There is a push from the regulator as well, like Mr. Mithilesh Singh just said. There has been a push from regulator as well on how you should define your cloud framework, how you define your cloud policy. Entire journey that the business has now will be a step-by-step process. Which is a good thing. Obviously, it will help the industry. It will help the entire financial vertical. But a lot of players who have already moved, it's a little bit, I would say, they have been with that same traditional approach, like I should have just one firewall, I should have just one data center, and people have started moving out of it now. Now, because of the new framework, they know what to do, they know how to do. So it's a good move, good direction from the regulators, and now even the business understands that, okay, if you're going to move on cloud at some point of time, this is what you have to do. Okay, it's a good way, and it also gives you a good picture of the financial stability, financial requirement of the entire cloud journey, which in a way helps the business to comprehend what sort of involvement they should have in the entire journey.
So thank you, Darshan sir, for giving that insight. So when we started, as Darshan sir said, right, when we started the cloud journey initially, when we started doing this digital transformation to our customers, so that's when it was not so well defined by regulators. Even they were a little skeptical about how this cloud is going to support, because when the IT infrastructure is not completely in your control, when moving from on-premise where you are in a controlled environment to a environment where it is with shared responsibilities, how it is going to span out. So I remember the days where we were doing these regulatory applications, trying to make our regulators understand how the VM's IP address cannot be defined. It is so dynamic. So how are we going to trace it? How are we going to make sure that this is the same VM on which this application is going to run? The data is going to get stored. How the data separation needs to happen, data isolation needs to happen. So it was a long process where we had to document, where we had to make sure we adhere to all the auditing processes, and also educate our regulators as well, right? So because it was the new start, and I completely agree, India is way far ahead in adoption. Our RBI, or be it our government organizations, they have been pioneers in adopting technologies, be it UPI, be it various different payment mechanisms that are reaching the grassroots levels. But when we were doing this across the globe, so that was some of the challenges where we were seeing. And new regulations keep coming. Regulation is an evolving landscape. It's not that once we are designed and architected on the cloud, it is forever compliance proof, right? So compliance proofing is one of the key aspects what we have been adopting, and how we have to adopt right from the start. We have to keep thinking, okay, if it is a regulatory application or application related to regulated industry, how do we make sure that we have an auditing log enabled? How do we make sure the workloads are isolated? How do we make sure that we have a continuous visibility into the whole API integration that is happening, where the requests are coming, who is requesting, and how do we make sure that there is minimum amount of fraud or minimum amount of cyber risk, right? So primarily we do agree that it is not possible to make it 100% security or cyber security proof, because new threats keep emerging, but it is also very important to make sure that we have the right security elements built in at the application level, at the data layer, at the network layer. So there are multiple layers at the infrastructure layer as well. And all this governance and various different regulatory aspects are trying to bring in those control measures which are now well documented, and any new cloud application that has to get onboarded has a detailed approach on how we have to follow the methodology, how we have to make the control measures, how we have to secure the data, how we have to build business continuity, how we have to manage the risk, right? So Mithilesh sir, from your perspective, how have you been overseeing this risk management in the cloud, and how are your applications adapting to these complexities?
So, ma'am, lot of things are regulatory driven also. So definitely, as I mentioned earlier, that one way of applications of moving to the cloud is that lift and shift, right? Suppose that you have native app developed over the cloud. So these are all architecture way of developing the solution and deploying over the cloud. But regulatory these days plays a very vital role. If I take you back, the way how technology landscape has evolved, because now everybody talks about cloud, right? In the similar way, if you go across the globe and see to any of the regulator, be it now in APAC, EMEA, or in the US, they all have some kind of framework or regulatory guidelines related with the cloud. So in the morning, I think somebody was talking about in one of the session about SEBI coming up with their guidelines on cloud framework. ESMA has its own guidelines. So any entity or a regulated entity who are listed in the European nation, European geography, so they have to abide by the ESMA guidelines on the cloud outsourcing. In the similar line, SEBI has its own cloud outsourcing and cloud-related framework requirement. Fed has its own requirements. So across the globe, and if you go to the APAC, especially in Hong Kong or Singapore, you will find HKMA, MAS, they have also their own guidelines. So things has evolved from the cyber to the cloud. Now people are talking about, the regulators are talking about the how you are going to provide the cyber security for the cloud environment. But one thing which we need to be very, very mindful that as the technology landscape has evolved, regulators has also evolved in this entire journey. And on top of that, the cost of compliance has also gone costly. So what does it mean that cost of compliance has gone costly is that when you are dealing with the, any money aspect, when you are in the banking or those kind of segment, any kind of products or services in the financial space, so definitely you are bound to follow certain compliance of that particular geography and the industry. So every regulators has come up with their own circular, own guidelines which need to be followed. And in addition to that, to meet those kind of compliance requirement, earlier when you used to have just the on-prem setup for any environment or businesses or products, so it was just on-prem deployment. So you were only ensuring that anything which are there in your on-prem setup, you were trying to ensure that all kind of security controls are there, all kind of compliance requirements are being met. But today, when you say that you have some cloud adoption, it doesn't mean that everything has gone on the cloud. There could be some part of your business who are still operating within the on-prem setup, maybe in the colo kind of space, but a percentage of your businesses or application or landscape has moved to the cloud. Or in certain cases wherein you are taking services from some SaaS provider. So net, what I'm trying to say is that the boundary has diminished, right? It is not that it is just an on-prem or it is just a cloud. You have all sort of environment, and you have to, on top of that, you have to give an assurance that the controls which was supposed to be there on the on-prem kind of setup, a similar kind of controls are there in the cloud environment. When you are talking about the data security, it is again applicable for both the environment. Regulators is not going to say that, okay, if something is there with the CSPs and it is CSP's responsibility. And when we talk about cloud deployment, cloud environment as a support or the backbone for your business, so then we are also talking about the shared responsibilities where the CSPs as well as the client or the user base, user client has to also ensure that the security of your organizations and the data security of your clients are where you are only accountable. So although there are shared responsibility concept, but eventually the accountability lies with the organization and for their client. In addition to that, I have also seen that somewhere in that morning there was a discussion around how government or the regulators are helping to ensure that there is a upward march in terms of the cloud adoption, security of the cloud environment. So one thing I would like to say here is that most of the CSPs which are onboarded by the MITI, so they have a very stringent process. And I will not name a couple of CSPs, but there were a couple of cloud service providers who once managed to get enlisted under the Meghdut initiative, Cloud First initiative by the government of India. However, after 3-year terms, they were not able to meet the STQC requirement. And during the audit process, they were being dropped from that 13, I think there were 2 or 3 who were dropped from that list of the CSPs. So that means if you are not part of those CSPs, that means you are not in a position to offer your services in country. In addition to that, so this was one of the part which I was trying to say about the MITI. So I am not very sure what is the total count of CSPs which are approved CSPs by the MITI and the government of India at this moment in time. But a couple of years back, the count was 13 or so. In addition to that, there are certain areas where government also mandate that we were talking about the data localization some time back. So to ensure that the data localizations are also being made for BFSI or those kind of regulated clients and the entity, certain cloud service provider has to ensure that all of their environments are hosted in that particular country. So there are separate kind of reviews which are also being carried out. In the US, I have seen that a couple of CSPs, they have Gov clouds. So what does it mean? That only government-related entity and the departments, they will be hosting their environment on that particular cloud. No other private sectors will have any kind of access to that environment or any other third-party provider. So that's again CSPs, but that's a dedicated environment given to the government department because they also have a lot of apprehensions in terms of the data should not flow out of their boundary, out of their geography. So that way, it's again a journey, I'll say. The way how technology is shaping up, it's evolving up, regulators are also doing its best. And I have seen in the banking sector, insurance sector, as well as various other sectors like in the telecom as well, that a lot of work is happening. And I believe that regulators are also playing a very vital role in terms of shaping up how the security and the controls environment and how the deployments of applications should happen in order to meet the overall secure environment perspective.
So thank you, Mithilesh sir, for touching upon that shared responsibility. So cloud platform providers are responsible for providing security of the cloud, whereas customers who are adopting that for their digital transformation journey are responsible for security in the cloud, right? So that is where data residency, data localization, and data encryption, protection, all that plays a very key role, and regulation trying to make sure that these control measures are in place, primarily not just for the data perspective, but also from how we are trying to manage the risk, how we are trying to avoid some threats, cybersecurity threats, how we are going to adopt a better architecture model, and making sure all the boundaries and controls are in place are also mandated through these SEBI regulations, or be it RBI regulations, or various global regulations as well, right? So these continuously evolving regulatory landscape has also been to make sure that there is minimal risk and we are more and more able to adopt a cloud with a better access management, or assume that there is always a disruption and make sure our design is more robust. So what are some of the measures, Darshan sir, from your perspective are important to make sure that we adhere to these regulatory aspects and make our journey onto the cloud much more reliable?
Okay, ma'am. First of all, one statement from you, I need to correct that. Nobody can give you 100% assurance on security. Nobody in this who understands security will give you 100% assurance. Okay, be it on cloud or on hybrid. The regulation aspect, as Mithilesh sir had already spoken about, you had spoken about, it's you are perfectly right. The regulations have come up. But as I had said previously as well, the regulations is something that is good. It means that it wakes up the industry. It wakes up the cloud service provider. Um, any cloud service provider before the regulations is to reach out the customer and is to show the moon. Okay, I would say that it was this to show how much you'll benefit from the business, but you don't know the the issues related to that, the security issues that comes up, the vulnerabilities due to comes up. Okay, uh, every cloud security provider. I'm not talking about any. I don't want to single out anyone. It's a salesperson. It's a job to sell his product. So I'm not even targeting him. But but when they do that, they give you the basic cloud service. They will give the basic network. Okay. But what happens due to that is the businesses who don't understand the entire cloud framework. It's some terms are very difficult to understand. What is Kubernetes? What are the workloads? What do you mean by ZTNA? Okay, these things which are new things, there some businesses don't understand them, and then what happens is they end up onboarding a cloud service provider. They start migrating their loads, and once the loads are migrated, they find, okay, this was supposed to be my regulations. This was supposed to be this will not give me security on my data. How will I ensure that the keys are managed properly? These are the issues that will come up every now and then. Whenever there will be an audit from a regulator, whenever there will be a person who understands the technical terms of entire cloud network, will come and check it out. It will the client will be responsible for it. And as the regulator, I understand the regulator's point of view, but then the regulator has in their all the regulations has always said objectively, if you are moving out to cloud, you are responsible for the data, for the network, for availability, loss, the only the organization available for this. Your Be it if you are outsourcing any services, be it if you are any cloud service provider, it's not a joint responsibility. You are responsible for it. You should take care of it. That is what the that is what the gist of the regulations is. Okay, I understand it is stringent, but then it is required. Because considering the sort of failures that people are having, considering the sort of losses people are having, considering the form of attack people are having, this is something that is required. What businesses should do is normally, if a salesperson is coming, he should ask objectively, "Okay, boss, what are you selling me? Okay, are you selling me a secure product? Are you selling me? Are you keeping something in a wraps and not informing me about it? Then I will have a problem at some point of time when I actually go ahead and deploying my workloads." So something like CSPM is a necessity in this case. Something like CASB is a necessity. Something like these are some trivial things, but the person who understands his business knows what the requirement is. But the technical way or the technical terms to define it needs a person who should be technically capable to understand the entire cloud workloads. So once that happens, it will. I don't think so. You can comply to any regulations. Okay, ISO is a good start. It will help businesses. In fact, if I'm not wrong, SEBI has advised people to move it with ISO 27001 already. Um, Even I think RBI has mandated it, I guess, and even the other regulators have mandated it. It's a good start, but then obviously you need to do more. To do that more, you need to understand your business requirement. To do that more, you need to understand what cloud is offering you. To do more, you need to ask the right questions to the cloud service provider, to the salesperson who is just trying to sell his product. You need to ask those questions to him, uh, be it the big players or even the small players. Be it STQC compliance is just a smaller start, which is with the regulator has asked you to do. But then STQC compliant is obviously not complete. There are a lot more things that you need to think about. You need to think about data privacy. You need to think about the regular assessments that you will conduct on the cloud. You need to think about the risk analysis that you will have to conduct on the cloud. Risk assessment after that. That is also something that is important when we migrate your data and your workloads on the cloud. So these are some basic things that the businesses need to understand if they need to ensure that they comply to such regulations. For me, if you would ask me, I am of the point of view that the regulations are perfect.
So thank you very much, Darshan sir, for giving that insight. So as we all should know, right, cloud is not where computing is done. It is where the place where how computing is done. And that how computing is done for these regulated industries are mandated by these compliances, which gives a very good checklist, at least because when we start without having this checklist, we don't know where to start. Businesses don't know what all things the application has to adhere when it gets migrated from on-premise to cloud, or when it is using a hybrid cloud. And technical experts know from technical side, and business people know from business side, and regulatory is trying to bring in and bridge the gap between this. But still there are a lot of complexities, right? It is not such a easy way of moving up core business applications or core banking applications, which are primarily hosted on-premise, and now suddenly moving everything onto cloud, or even moving the new age applications which are very close to customers, trying to give probably like a mobile banking application, or even for a payment gateways. All that still requires lot of security which has to be built in, because it all involves customer data. So primarily customer has to feel comfortable. He has to feel that my data is secure, my data is protected, and whatever data that has been provided to the bank, be it part of KYC or be it part of various different applications through which now even the account opening is online, right? So people need not have to go and give their documents in person to the bank. It can just get uploaded on the digital application of the banking system. So that's where data protection, data privacy, and data lineage also comes or plays a very critical role. How we are trying to protect the data, how we are trying to make sure the data life cycle is managed, how we are making sure that whatever inactive data, though there are a lot of active data that is coming on to cloud on a day-to-day basis, but protecting that itself is a major task. Apart from that, also protecting the cloud cold data, right? Whatever has been archived, whatever needs to be used for insights, whatever has to be built in for customer behavior analysis, so that we can do the right selling, we can do the right targeted the personalization that is required for the customer. So multiple different aspects in which banking applications are, or the data that is being transferred in these banking applications are residing on various different clouds, right? So how are we making sure that data protection, data privacy, data encryption, and data discarding as well, right? It is not just about the protection of the active data, it's also about archiving, and after the life cycle, how are we making sure that data is discarded efficiently, so that there is no leakage of information at any point in time. So I think this has been a very key critical aspect when the applications were moved from the on-premise fully controlled environment to a shared responsibility model of cloud environments, and managing the hybrid mode between the on-premise, between the cloud, between the multiple clouds also plays a critical role. Even regulators recommend that for business continuity purposes, or for the workload optimization, or workload security purposes, right? So the complexities keeps increasing, the cost benefit what we are trying to get from moving on to the cloud. At the same time, when it is giving the flexibility, when it is giving the scale, and when it is giving the ability to innovate, it is also adding to the complexities of how we are going to manage it much more protected way and secured way. So data privacy and data security, I think that has been a paramount concern. And many measures have been taken place, many tools are in place, be it cloud native tools, third-party tools, whatever we take, as Darshan sir mentioned, CSPM, CASB, all these various tools are mandatorily required, and cloud entitlement, identity access and management, access controls, asset management, various aspects that are built into the governance part of data as well, right? So, Mithilesh sir, how are you making sure that in your journey, these data privacy protection and also data encryption are handled efficiently, so that the confidence level in which the data is managed is efficient?
So I'll go back to the basics. Data at rest and data at transit is the basic principle. Doesn't matter whether you are operating in on-prem kind of setup or you are in the cloud business. So irrespective of the kind of environment, if you know your data and you know that where the data resides, who are the person who are accessing the data, who are the systems which have access to those data, so then your half the job is done. Putting the right controls in place, identify the identification of the identity who is having the access to those environment, then only you will be in a position to put the appropriate controls in order to ensure that the security is there. See, security you don't need to adhere or deploy just for the sake of compliance requirement or just for the sake of a regulatory requirement. What you have to ensure that irrespective if nobody is watching you, how secure are you that something, if it is going wrong, you will be in a position to protect your business. So basic thumb rule says that data classification has to be there. So for data classification, you need to identify the data. You need to understand which all the business application and the platform or the environment those data are being residing. Then criticality of the data that you need to understand, and then accordingly your entire journey starts. Then whether you need to put a DLP kind of solution to protect the data at particular endpoint, or you want to have a kind of a secluded environment when somebody is going to access those environment, and how you are going to put JTA kind of setup. So there are many things, but eventually, as I always say, that back to basics. If your basics are good, if your environments are not having any kind of vulnerabilities, if you are doing the patch management in a proper manner, there's a high possibility that you will be able to avoid any kind of ransomware attack or environment compromise. Lot of times what we have seen in the recent past, maybe in last 3-4 years, precisely all those recent cyber breaches which are happening, the attack vectors, they have been residing in the environment for years, and they understand the environment, they do all kind of exploration, and when the time comes, then they start compromising your environment. They even know who is your CXOs. They even know that where what all important client related data are being residing, and believe me, these all are a time taking process. It never happens that today some hackers got inside your environment and tomorrow they started compromising your setup. I have seen cases wherein people have adopted one of the cloud service providers services. They were not even aware that they have been going through some of the very high uses of their cloud environment. One fine day, the CSPs send them a notification that for this particular month, your billing is around $1 million. And when this kind of intimation came to them, they have not set a kind of threshold or a frequency which generally all CSPs provide. Whenever you opt for a CSP services, you get an option that what is the cutoff by which if the bill surpasses, you will get the alert and intimation from the CSPs. They have not done that. But when the bill came around $1 million for a particular month, so they started looking into the uses of the environment, and they realized that couple of their servers, they were in use by some hackers to perform crypto mining. So it is not only the privacy of the data or the security of the data of your customers. You also need to see that, because you don't have the right set of skill sets available in the market. There are good guys available in the market in the cloud business, cloud technology areas, but not in that ample amount of resourcing available. So what happens when you are using the services, you don't know the basics and the fundamentals of those services, you have just opted for those services. You don't know how to manage the cost, you don't know how to manage the billing part, you don't know how to address the all kind of non-compliance, the VA, PT related issue in the cloud environment. On-prem, if something is there, it's very easy because you have been doing it for since ages. But when the things goes to the cloud, lot of things get changed. And that's why I said that technology landscape has become more complex. You have been managing one environment, now you have been managing multiple environment because of on-prem and the cloud. On top of that, the multi-cloud adoption has come up. So one services you are taking from Microsoft, one services you are taking from Google, another from the Amazon. So you yourself have chosen to make those entire environment more complex. But the compliance requirement from the regulators, that has not changed. That has gone up, but their expectation remains the same, that irrespective of the environment, wherever you are serving from, wherever you are serving your client, that has to be protected. So that is the another aspect which you have to ensure that that all the requirements are being addressed by the end client. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Mithilesh sir, for giving insights on that. Now that with new kid, technology kid in the block, right, ChatGPT trying to do all this information with prompt engineering, I think generative AI is also posing another security challenge. So our protection mechanisms, as rightly said by Darshan sir, right, it has to keep evolving, it has to keep changing, and it has to keep on par with whatever new things, new threats that are evolving, right? So how do we manage this continuous journey, sir?
Oh, that's a very difficult one. Okay, I would say start by saying that you need to have developed those skill sets, which is the toughest part of it. That skill sets development is something that you need to look at. Um, you need to improve your own skill sets. You need to deploy, get the right people to work on it. Um, with this current pool that you with the current attrition that the industry is facing already in the security, it's very difficult. I understand that. That's a big issue that the entire industry is facing. Also from the also apart from that, if skill sets is not the only problem, we also have a problem where or of having availability of funds. The budgets that are available to you may not give you the right tools. You need to customize. You need to think. You need to innovate and have ways to ensure there are control mechanisms. So there will be risks identified in every business. Okay, you need to have those control measures. You need to have those reforms. You need to have some sort of basis developed on your own, so that the business is always protected, secured, and you to bring down the risk metrics at some point of time. So basically, the way I see it now, with the current scenario and with whatever is happening throughout the world, I even had a discussion today morning with one of my friend. Uh, the business doesn't frankly care that we have been attacked. They just care that when are you going to bring me up? Okay. The number one, number one criteria in every board meeting is what is our availability? How are you going to bring it down? Okay. I need to have my business up and running at any point of time. That's a major player in every board meetings, everywhere. If the data is breached, okay, the first question that any board member or any person I would speak to would ask is, what is the volume of data that has been breached? What can you do to secure it? Or what can you do to secure the rest of the data? Okay. How are you going to react to investors and customers when they will come back and ask you questions? At why my data was leaked? Okay. These are some questions which are literally a part of every discussion nowadays with the management. Okay, because since due to a lot of social networking so social networking and a lot of news going around related to leakage, hacks, attacks, the North Korean players, the Russian players, the Ukrainian players. There are so many players throughout the world. They are just trying to breach your network. And I would not say that you, at any point of time, you will never be breached. You must have been breached and you are not even aware of, which is an even bigger risk. So you have to have, if you understand your business risk, I would suggest that you need to go back to the board, you need to go back to the basic, like Mr. Mithilesh rightly pointed out. You need to have your basics right. You need to bring down that risk a little bit. Okay, so that what happens is the person who is trying to get into a network, he's trying to attack you, will have very less amount of exploit that is available for him, and you will ensure your business is up and running on time. Okay, be it on cloud or be it on local, the concept is the same. Your business has to be available at any point of time. Now, cloud service providers fail. There are top players who have failed in the recent past. There have been outages with the cloud service providers. So none of the businesses, I would say, my data center has been giving me 99%, 99.99% of availability, but the cloud service provider has failed. It has happened. It's a fact of life, and every business accepts it. But the major concern is I have a certain market ask. When is my business up and running, so that my people who are working on the business should be able to do their regular office work, should be able to revert back to the customers and investors' queries and inform them on a regular basis. These are the major issues that every security person needs to think about. These are very basic issues, and these are I think so. These are low-hanging fruits, I would say, that every person should take it first in any risk analysis or any risk mitigation tactics.
So Lakshmi ma'am, just to add one thing, he has brought a very valid point. The fear of moving out is something which we all always feel that it comes in our technology adoption kind of life cycle. So what I'm trying to say here, that not necessary that if you don't have a requirement of a cloud, and you, just because all industry peers are going on cloud, you are also marching towards it. And I'll give you a very classic example. Most of us are user of Amazon Prime here, right? And Amazon Prime Video, Amazon Prime Shopping, and all those, right? So Amazon, everybody knows, the leader in the cloud space. They have been the leader, or I will say that they have been blowing it like macro service architecture for any application and platform development is the de facto standard and de facto things when you are adopting the cloud. So what does it mean? That they have been always trying to put a kind of message that if you are in the monolithic architecture, which is the old traditional client-server architecture, that is not the future. You have to migrate to the macro services architecture. Today, it's just a month or a couple of weeks back, entire Amazon Prime, they have rolled back their macro services architecture to the monolithic architecture. So they are going back to the old way of building the application and the platform. And why so? Because the macro services architecture, which is completely a cloud native, aligned, agile, or whatever you say, is not helping to provide the kind of performance and the services to the scale what Amazon Prime has reached in their video business. So it is only can be served through the old monolithic architecture. So it's a separate point of discussion, but what I am trying to say, that it is all case-to-case basis. Do you really require cloud? And if you require cloud, so is it like you are completely in a mind that you want to move from the monolithic to microservice architecture? Or first of all, whether the business really requires that kind of environment or setup or not. You can have your own in-house virtual environment which can be scalable, and there's a lot of solutions and the technology which are available. But if you are opting for a cloud, there has to be a strong business justification. A thorough risk assessment has to be done. One of the very important point which just came to my thought, that many of the times when people migrate from their on-prem to the cloud, they don't think about the exit strategy. So whenever you are opting for any kind of cloud CSPs, you also need to ensure that you have a proper exit strategy signed with the CSPs as part of your agreement. Because tomorrow, if things doesn't work out, if you want to migrate from one CSP to another CSP, or if you want to bring the entire environment back to your on-prem setup, then there shouldn't be any kind of other challenges for your businesses. So lot of things are evolving, a lot of changes are happening. People are even looking into some of the past setup. But yes, it is again case to case basis, and you have to be very mindful before we go for that kind of solution and adoption of the cloud. It has its own complexities and challenges as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Darshan sir, for saying always approach with zero trust, and thank you, Mithilesh sir, for saying always do a risk assessment. It is a continuous journey, both zero trust approach and also a risk assessment approach. I think these are the continuous what we have to keep adopting and making sure we see that lens. And these audits will certainly help us to remain, at least to know where there are some vulnerabilities, how we can address them, and how to make sure that we close them effectively and efficiently. So it's a continuous journey. I would say it's just a beginning, but the journey always continues, and we have to keep at it and make sure that the risk mitigation is done and risk is minimized, right? Yeah, with this, I would like to end this panel discussion. Any questions from audience, we are happy to take.
Hi, everyone. Hi, esteemed panel. Good afternoon, and thank you for the very insightful thoughts. I'm Sahil. I represent Salesforce from an information security standpoint. Just wanted to check, obviously, moving on to the cloud is a big decision, like Sir said. It entails a lot of responsibility, especially on the security and the technology piece. So just trying to understand, because I face these questions a lot from CISOs like yourself and across the industry. What would make an organization, or what are the top of the mind thoughts that would make an organization feel more comfortable, embracing a CSP, especially coming from an organization like SaaS, a SaaS-based model? Because IaaS, yes, you have your own setup, but from a SaaS, where the visibility is significantly low from a CSP perspective, what would those couple of things be to ensure that you're more comfortable embracing a solution like SaaS?
Yeah, but this is from your business side you're asking, or the sales side you're asking? Okay, okay. Oh, okay, I'll answer that.
Information security for
Yeah, okay. So from the business side, I would say that the major comfort is when you give him the right justifications, the right requirements. Okay, you need to. Like I said before, you need to understand the business. I've had this question multiple times. You're a security guy. Why do you need to understand business? Okay, I'm a security guy, but without understanding business, I cannot give you solution. I'm a very frank person. I tell any process owner, any person who is working with me, sorry, if I don't understand your business, I'm not going to give a solution. I'm not in a position to give I'm not giving justice to I'm not doing justice to my role. That is a major part. So whenever I sit for the board, whenever I have any vendor as well, I ask him the same questions. I ask him the same my scenario, and the entire way to discuss it is the same. Okay, what justice are you going to give to my business? Okay, be it you are from Salesforce, be it Salesforce or any other CRM tool or anything else. Sorry, or anything else. So basically, without without doing a little bit of homework, it is not possible. Sorry, I would say, setting for even for this current session that we are having, I did my homework. I did a little bit of understanding what is happening, because see, for any meeting, for any board meeting, for any sales meeting, for anything, you need to do a little bit. You need to understand the business. I have been to multiple sales meeting. The first question I asked any sales guys: do you understand mutual fund industry? Then start selling me the solution. Okay, this is a basic question. Okay, and obviously it will be beneficial to you as well, because when you show the interest in that industry, the then what happens is you will be able to sell it. You'll be able to express yourself. You'll be able to understand your opposite number as well, and then you'll be able to make it clear why that solution is required to that business. This is how I view it.
So Mithilesh sir, do you like to add? Do you like to add to what Darshan sir
He
said?
has given a complete coverage. So entirely, as you said, that from where the request comes, whose priorities, and then accordingly things change, right? Is it from the business, it is from the technology, or it is from the security? Accordingly, I think you can make it as per their expectation.
Yeah. As both of them said, I completely agree. I think business criticality is key to understand how critical is this application, how critical is the information, how critical is the data, and what's the SLA that we need to adhere to. I think these are few critical points which we need to keep addressing, and that's what makes sure that we build every building block in the much more secured way.
So I think it's done. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Mithilesh sir, Darshan sir, for the extremely good discussion. Thank you, Lakshmi ma'am, for moderating it so well. Thank you, everyone. Good day.